Warning, you are leaving your safe space. What's up, everyone? Re-recording the audio for this because it turned out pretty low last time. But basically, going to summarize why I've been talking about politics and made the videos that I've made up to this point. And then at the end, I'm going to announce some stuff that I'm going to do in a little bit different direction. Start doing some more interesting topics. Mostly trying to educate people. I've often thought about becoming a teacher, and I have had an opportunity to be an instructor for the local apprenticeship program, and I did enjoy that. So in the spirit of trying to help people, especially our young people, let's get right into it. So if you haven't seen my videos up to this point, I'm just a regular guy working construction, and I follow politics probably more closely than the majority of people, but there's a lot of crap going on. I've come upon stories, in particular the political scandal surrounding Jordan Peterson in Canada, about the transgender pronoun movement. There was actually a bill passed in Canada that required certain forms of speech, which is technically against the First Amendment of our United States Constitution, but they're in Canada, so their system is a little different. Which brings me to the main topic of why I made this channel, is I feel like our American government is heading in that direction, and it's getting too big for its britches, you might say. It's way too intrusive in our lives. And the thing that I would like people to keep in mind is that when the government passes legislation, they're actually restricting the citizens of its nation. So the Constitution, I'm not an anarchist. I believe that a form of government is necessary for a society to be functional, but the government should be as small's not the right word, should be near invisible. The government's role is to protect its citizens first and foremost, and that's where the Constitution comes into play. So the Constitution assumes or acknowledges that you have all the rights, you have the right to do whatever you want, but if you do certain things and interfere with other people's rights, then you're considered a criminal, and in interfering or not respecting the rights of other people, you forfeit your rights. So you go to prison, you give up your freedom for a time as determined by the court. That's what it is to be a felon. That's what it is to have a felony charge. And the government has made some drug crimes felonies, and that's a different topic for a different debate, but in particular gun control has come up quite a bit, and the problem I have with that is if I'm sitting in the chair being interviewed by one of these news anchors or talking heads or whatever, the reality is that I could kill the interviewer right then and there with no weapon, or I could snatch the pencil out of the interviewer's hand and jam it into their eye socket or up through the bottom of their chin. I could tear chunks of flesh out of them, and there's nobody close enough to really stop me before I do some serious damage. Strangulation, eye gouging, these are all things that could be done with no weapon whatsoever. If we're banning guns because they're being used to hurt people, why aren't we banning pencils or spoons? You could kill someone with either one of those. My job requires me to ride around with a truck full of tools that I could implement in a murder spree, to go on a murder spree. If you get cracked upside the head with a 1-inch conduit bender, you're going to have a hard time coming back from that. It's perfectly legal. No one bats an eye when they see someone walking around with a conduit bender on their shoulder. But that's the thing, the law isn't what keeps people from hurting each other. The law isn't what keeps me from killing the interviewer or the interviewer from killing me when I disagree with one of their points. We choose to act civilly and continue the discussion to try to reach a better understanding. The law doesn't keep me from killing you. I keep me from killing you. That's just one example. Then another problem is the whole left versus right. Like, there's only two parties that are actually viable to be in any kind of position in the government. I don't understand why this is the case, why we have to narrow it down to two people every 4 years. Anyone should be able to run for office, and then we vote for the person which most closely represents our views. And if most people agree with one side, then they're going to get voted in. And then when they do something wrong, then they should get voted out. And the biggest problem we have is that one side refuses to acknowledge the other side. And it's on both sides. The right thinks they have all the answers and refuse to even listen to the left, and vice versa. It's, again, the whole left versus right thing. People always make this distinction between the far right and the far left, but they're both authoritarian in the end. The extreme right or Nazis or whatever, and then the extreme left, socialists or communists or whatever, the end game for both is to see one side shut down and their side rise above to make all the decisions and control what everybody else does. I don't understand why there's this distinction. We should all be listening to each other and trying to come up with better ways to move each other forward and pick each other up. Sorry about that. But yeah, so that brings me to racism, which I will just talk about a little bit. People are going to be racist. Being racist, I think it's a bad idea. It's silly. Because most racists want their group of people to stick together, so you realize that you can't move forward without other people, but you would shut out so many people and so many ideas just because of the way someone looks. That's part of the problem. This closed-mindedness is so rampant that it's almost impossible for new ideas to even be brought to light, because as soon as someone disagrees with the idea, they try their best just to shut it down so it can't be heard ever. But we need to be exposing ideas, especially the bad ones, so that we could correct it. So that's again why I started this channel, to try to expose different ideas like those of Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. I like some stuff that Sam Harris says. I like Jordan Peterson. The thing with Jordan Peterson that just seems strange to me is how he's been teaching young people coming through the University of Toronto, and he did spend some time at Harvard. he's been teaching them to stand up straight and be responsible for their own lives, take control of their own life, and not be dependent on someone else, especially the government. But he wasn't, those ideas weren't the ones that people decided to spread around. It wasn't until he was mixed up in a political scandal that he actually began to circulate around the internet and around the world. I still don't understand why that is. It's kind of like the people jumping into cactuses, those type of videos. Like, why do people watch those? I feel like the outcome, the result of that video is pretty obvious without having to watch it. But I guess that just shows the state of society today. Kind of like I found a video about some college athletes, I think from the University of Florida, that spent time with some middle schoolers. And this one football player sat down. I think the kid had autism or something, but he basically sat at lunch alone, eating lunch every day. And this college football player went and sat down with him, had lunch with him. And that when I watched that video, I think it only had like 5 million views. But then there's like Vines and shit that have over 100 million views. Fucking Justin Bieber videos and the Paul brothers. I mean, there's like a whole event just watching the Paul brothers rack up subscription numbers. I mean, where are people's priorities? I mean, that seems like the core issue that we need to be discussing right now. Is how people are prioritizing things. This whole consumer mindset, the consumer society that we live in. Everybody thinks that they have to they think that moving forward means that they're getting the newest and best stuff that they can buy. People buying yachts, and I mean, there are television events where people just watch people walk down a red carpet and talk about their clothes, how expensive their fucking dress was, the type of jewelry that they're wearing. I mean, all this inane, meaningless stuff. It's just a lot of fluff and crap that people are focusing on instead of actually trying to fix the problems that we're facing. So, some things that I think we could do to help change the situation. Term limits. We need to shrink the government. Every time something happens, the stories all revolve around what the government, what the politicians think about what's going on in our culture. I mean, it should be the other way around. Our culture should determine what our politicians talk about, but the politicians going on camera talking about problems isn't helping. I mean, the news media, their role is to expose the issues of the day. The issue of the day is not what the politicians think about the issues. The issues are the issues. We voted the politicians in because they're supposed to represent our values, so we should already have a pretty good idea of what they think about what's going on in our culture. This whole theater, again, about narrowing it down, only having 2 people talking to each other with a moderator. Like, these people can't even moderate themselves. They want to tell us how we should be acting towards each other, how we should be interacting with each other. And they're going to write laws to confine our lives to acting the way they want us to act, but they can't even act civilly towards each other without somebody sitting in the middle. I mean, the whole, even in the debates, that people never actually talk about fixing the issues. They bring up an issue, one person says something, the other person says something else, and then they start slandering each other, yelling over each other. The moderator, who's usually biased one way or the other. Doesn't ask any like actual questions. They're just asking, well, what do you think about what this person said about your tweet? Or what do you think about what this person said about Colin Kaepernick? You know, that doesn't matter. What are we going to do about the thing that Colin Kaepernick was fighting? You know, he thinks there is a system in place via the police that is targeting specifically black people and hauling them off to jail for no reason, or without due cause or without due process. If that is an actual problem, we need to address it. If it's not a problem, apparently we need to expose more stories and more evidence that show that it isn't actually a problem. Like the fact that there are communities of mostly black and minority police officers that are, arresting black people. It's not a race thing. Black people aren't targeting black people because they're black. I found this video on YouTube. I hope I can find it again. But there's this young kid, looked like they were in New York probably, maybe Chicago. But he's just walking down the street and there's this older white lady and she's holding a Black Lives Matter sign and spouting off some rhetoric, and the black kid confronts her and is like, what do you realize what it is you're supporting? One of the points he makes is, you understand that me as a black person, he was dressed nice. He was like in a suit, and he's like, if I walk through a black neighborhood looking like this, I'm 2,000 times more likely than a white person to get attacked. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know what to do about teaching people to think differently, but I mean, all I can do is give my perspective and hope it helps influence people to just think. I mean, just think for a few seconds before you make a decision. You don't have to do everything immediately. It pays to think ahead. It's like I saw a video with Larry Elder, and he was having a debate with some black nationalists, and one of the black nationalist supporters in the crowd quoted, I believe it was Socrates, gave a quote from Socrates asking Larry Elder a question. So Larry Elder came back with another Greek philosopher, Plato, or somebody, and he goes like, "Oh, you're quoting old black man." He was like, "God, you just quoted Socrates to me. It's okay for you to do it, but I can't, give you a similar response." I mean, this is the type of stuff that prevents us from actually moving forward. So again, some ways to fix it: term limits, end lobbying. Lobbying should be illegal. People should not be allowed to go up to Capitol Hill and bribe politicians. That is anti-American. The politicians are supposed to be representative of the people. They're not supposed to just represent the biggest company that donated them the most money. That's actually the opposite of what we want. We also do not want a central nanny state. I mean, that's kind of the idea that we were trying to avoid in establishing the Constitution and the United States of America. The people that established the Constitution were thinking of how they could prevent a monarchy from evolving and taking control of the entire populace, which was the case in pretty much every country up to this point. America is very new. It's a very young country, comparatively. Which begs another question. If America is so bad, then how did we become the country that everyone else in the world looks to for help? Whenever there's anything going on in the world, everybody turns to America. And we are, like I said, one of the youngest countries. We are among the youngest nations in the world. But yet we are the one everybody has their hand out to. We're the one that everybody looks to for assistance. We give foreign aid to almost every other country in the world, probably every country in the world. But yeah, we still have our own people that are on the streets. I mean, in California, people are literally shitting in the streets. I mean, it's a sad state, and when people point it out, they just get shut down. And that's preventing us from progressing forward. I mean, new and better ideas can't come to light if nobody else wants to listen. But, every great idea started with an army of one. So hopefully we can move forward, because I know I'm not the only one. There's plenty of people trying to help this debate. Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein, Lindsay Shepard, some black guy. I recently found out about him. He's probably one of the coolest people I've seen on YouTube. Uncle Hotep, Handy Mayhem is the name of his channel. He's pretty good. Again, Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell, Dave Rubin, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's probably one of the best podcasts to watch or listen to, because he has such a wide variety of guests. Not all of them are interesting to me, but I have different tastes than other people. Just like the podcast that he does that I don't like, most people, a lot of people might like. But I think that's going to do it for now. So I told you why I was making this channel. Stuff we could do. Oh, one other thing I think would help. Parents, stop letting the schools raise your kids. The government has taken far too much control through the Department of Education. We need to start looking at that. And again, I'm an advocate for repealing some of the laws that we have on the books. We have so many laws on the books right now that people are proposing legislation to protect people from other legislation, i.e. the illegal immigrants. So, anyway, that's going to put the cap on political stuff for now. I mean, looking at the news, what can you really say about what's going on? There's just so much silliness and theatrics. I'm glad that more and more people are waking up and seeing through the bullshit. So, with that being said, in my future videos, I'm going to start, I guess, gonna do maybe like a how-to channel. Do some math stuff, start with the basics. Driving is one of my pet peeves. So if you're a shitty driver, prepare to be triggered. Especially as it pertains to motorcycles, riding motorcycles. But yeah, I've got some pretty good insight on stabilizing yourself financially. So I'll probably do a video about that. I'm also currently working on changing my career. So I'll probably make videos about that, how that's going, and things that I learned to try to help people along the way. But that's going to do it for now. Let the flaming begin.